Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting for June 19th, 2023. I'm Commissioner Nick Scull. To my left is Commissioner Cheryl Locker. To my right is Commissioner Anthony Peruzzi, our solicitor, Alex Baumler, and Township Manager Matt Canlin, and Director of Parks and Recreation, Pat Stacio. Are there any presentations or announcements? There are none. Okay, approval of the minutes. I have something. Last month, under the Library Board Trustees report, it said the survey posted by the library is open to reassess the needs of the community, and it should have said the survey will be posted to reassess the needs of the community. And when will that be posted?
Not till July 24th.
Okay. All right. Are there any other corrections?
Nope.
All right. Moving on to acceptance of the following monthly reports. Parks and Recreation Report. Mr. Stasio.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before you have the May 23 Parks and Recreation Monthly Report, and just a couple highlights for you. On the administrative side, continue to communicate with the Land and Water Conservation Fund about the $1.25 million grant for which we've applied. Spoke to them now on 3 separate occasions, and everything is looking very, very favorably at this point. The way it works is DCNR makes the contact with Land and Water Conservation Fund. They send the information. DCNR usually makes decisions in October, November annually. Land and Water Conservation Fund usually makes decisions in February or March. So it's a little more in time. The timeline is a little longer to get the $1.25 million if we do in fact get it. And then you have to jump through some additional hoops when you receive that grant. Nothing we can't handle. So all of the conversations have been very encouraging. So I'm looking forward to that. Also monitored the progress of the paving of the parking lot at Pileggi Park. The entire facility is being repaved by the Public Works Department. They've been out there about 2 weeks. I think they're almost completed, and after they're done, we're going to bring somebody in to paint the lines on the parking lot. And also, we're working now on the township newsletter. All the information went to all the department heads and all the different organizations within the community that put in the newsletter. So we've received that information back, and we continue to work on it. In the recreation division, we have 3 adult softball leagues, which are up and running very well. The assistant director, Kate Kohler, runs those programs. We do have, in fact, it was on ABC News tonight, if you happen to catch it, there's a shortage of umpires, and it made the ABC News. We also have a shortage of umpires, so anybody watching that wishes to be an umpire for adult slow pitch softball, please reach out to our department. Our Golden Age Club is now on hiatus for the summer. They'll pick up again with their meetings in December. This year we have 278 members in our Golden Age Club.
Can any of them be umpires?
They certainly can, absolutely.
I think we filled the void.
That's a great idea. Our summer camps are starting next week, and our assistant director, Kate, and Jen, our recreation assistant, have been putting long hours in to get that program up and running. We had difficulty finding leaders again this summer, and through the efforts of our staff, with assistance from HR, we've been able to fill all of the slots that we need for our summer camp counselors, so we're very excited about that. And Kate and Jen also assisted with the Montgomery County Senior Games in early May. Montgomery County Senior Games is an opportunity for seniors age 50 and over to get out and participate in, I think, one of probably 30 different sporting events, golf, softball throw, hot shot, cycling, swimming, running. There's a number of events. And Kate and Jen were assisting in that process as well. And on the maintenance side, continued extensive work with the sewer lines at Masons Mill Park. We've had several issues in May. We had to hire outside contractors, and our crews assisted those contractors. We believe that problem is solved. Our crews assisted the Freedom Steps 5K run at Masons Mill Park. We did take down a large tree that had fallen across the creek at Memorial Park, which was acting as a dam. And every spring we roll our athletic fields, and then we aerate them. Roll to take the bumps out over the winter, and then aerate to get oxygen back into those fields. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have concerning the report.
Well, somewhere in there, I saw something about a private contractor doing a snack bar at Masons Mill Park.
So we've been approached by a private contractor who's interested in opening a snack bar at Masons Mill, a snack stand at Masons Mill Park. They made a presentation to the Parks and Rec Advisory Council in May. Council did not take any action on that. We're going to discuss that again at our July meeting. Whether they recommend or not, that will come before the board as to, yes, we want to do this, or no, we don't want to do this. Also spoke with the solicitor about what are the parameters, are we permitted to do this? Got some great feedback. The answer is yes, we're permitted to do this, but there's some restrictions on what we can and cannot do. So before I present anything to this committee, I want the Parks and Recreation Council to provide their recommendation.
Sure. And we would get a cut, right?
Well, that's all to be worked out, so it depends who's building the snack stand and how do we work out the contract, but yes, it would definitely, there would be some income to Upper Moreland Township.
Franchise, what would you say? Yeah. Great.
I just wanted to say thank you to Kate and Jen for all the efforts for the summer program. I'm sure there's a lot of very appreciative families.
Just,
Big deal.
I'll follow that up with some comments that have been on Facebook. Scores of comments about our program and the successes, how successful it's been in the past and how the kids love it. So that helps with ease some of the fears that the first time parents have, you know, when you're dropping off your first grader for the first time. So it's been very helpful what the community has been saying about the programs offered by Kate.
So it was in the meeting minutes, our request for planned costs and timelines, for the work being done at Farmstead.
Farmstead, right, and if I didn't, what I meant to say was, we were gonna wait until the bids come in to see how much money we're actually gonna spend, and then base our future, the next 6 months to a year, off of how much funds we have. We have a list of things that we want to get accomplished, but we're trying to determine the pecking order, to see where the funds would come from.
So I don't believe that was my intention of the request, so let me rephrase because it got lost. What we need to know, or what I need to know, is what all of the projects are and what we had originally assumed they were gonna cost, right?
Okay.
Because we're chopping up the order in which we're gonna do things, and we have to respond to the inflationary costs associated with the work. And I wanna see what other types of impact that's gonna have on future projects in the park.
I can get that out to the commissioners within a week. I'll send a mass email to the manager and the board. Okay.
Yeah, because that would be good to have, and then we can continue to update that as we start to, you know, fill contracts and chip off the work.
Understood now. I misunderstood what you were asking for.
Yeah, no problem.
I wanted to inquire, Matt and I were at the opening of the Federated Housing building last Friday. It was wonderful. I didn't get a chance to ask, are they getting our newsletter, our township newsletter? Are their addresses on the list? You might not know.
What we do for the township newsletter through the mail house is every address that's registered with the United States Post Office, whether it's a business or a home in Upper Moreland Township, gets a newsletter. So if they have an address registered with the post office, they should be getting a newsletter. Two things happen with that, though. It goes by carrier route. So some folks in Horsham or parts of Hatboro may get our newsletter because they're in the carrier route. So you might see an excess of newsletters, but yeah, they should receive them. We also get, every year, we get phone calls from neighborhoods that haven't gotten them.
Sure. And
for whatever reason, I'm not gonna point a finger anywhere, but we keep a list and we mail newsletters out separately. So if you know anyone who's not receiving a newsletter, they're coming out the first week of September, first 2 weeks of September. If they don't have it by the third week of September, they should call the township. They can stop by and pick one up, or we will mail one out to them. It'll also be posted online.
we should check on that, Matt, right? Sure. Okay, where are we? Click up, click. All right, next we have our Library Board of Trustees report.
Good evening. I've been
Good
here
evening.
3 times in 4 months, so I
Yeah,
feel very at home.
good to see you, good to see you again.
Tony Giannetti, I live in the township and I practice in the township. I just want to go through a couple of points. I think we all know the library is about books and all the things that the library offers, but every month when we do our board meetings, we get a report from the director about utilization. And I can promise you that so many of these story times are highly utilized. Like there's a story time for toddlers, like aged up to age 3. There's story time for 4-year-olds. There's Fuzzy Friends, where they literally bring in animals and they do story time with animals. You know, there's Tale-Wise, which is a highlight of science. The adults, there's, literary workshops. There's, this month you can make terrariums with light bulbs. And senior services, we have socials. So I don't know what the board needs to hear from what the library is doing, but you can be rest assured that the money you're spending in the library is well spent. The constituents, who we're all here to serve, are being well served. We're working on the survey. Margie and I were talking about, then you'll see tangible results. This is just me talking to you. Maybe I'm lying to you, you don't know. But when we get the results from the survey, you will see how vital and how important the library is. I remember when I was in Rotary, I used to be in Glenside Rotary a long time ago before I started volunteering at the clinic that I volunteer at. And I remember the social worker came in and said, we build our prisons based upon the literacy rate of the neighborhoods. So if we can, if that's an indication of our literacy rates, the Upper Moreland Library, as one commissioner said, it's a great place to live. We don't have crime, we don't have fires. The people really utilize the library, and to see all the services that are offered, the myriad of services, and the newsletter is too numerous to count. But suffice to say that the people that use the library just love it. I'm enthusiastic. It's easy for me. I'm a relatively new member. I'm very enthusiastic, but there are so many good things happening there. Be rest assured that our money is being well spent. Commissioner Scholes at every meeting, he can testify to the fact that we really do some really neat things there, and it's because of all you. So we want to thank first and foremost, we have to thank you, because without you, I wouldn't be here. And so we do appreciate that. So I'll answer any questions if there are any.
I have none, except to say the library has had this reputation for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's well served.
And it continues.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, there's no old business, but there's some new business. The Shade Tree Commission Progress Report.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to ask our Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation, Kate Kohler, to come up and give the progress report.
Thank you, Pat. Good evening, Commissioners. As you may know, you appointed the Parks and Rec Advisory Council as the Shade Tree Commission earlier this year. Since then, the Parks and Rec Advisory Council has selected 4 members to serve as a Shade Tree Committee. In addition to myself, Jen, our Recreation Assistant, and Lynette Saunders from Environmental Advisory Council. We've had 2 meetings thus far. During our first meeting, we set an initiative of education and events, meaning we know that we're a small group of volunteers. So we were looking for already established events that we could be a part of. And we have partnered with Farmstead Alliance, Pennypack Ecological Restoration Trust to do a tree event over at Farmstead. We also partnered with EAC. Actually, they ran the Arbor Day celebration, but we were a part of that. Out there getting messy, doing tie-dye flowers and spreading, information regarding shade trees in our community. We also took the opportunity to network with other neighboring community shade tree committees. So Jen, our recreation assistant, reached out to several of the volunteer committees and created a networking event in June at Hatboro at the Pennypack School. We had 9 other municipalities represented, and we figured this would benefit us because we're new. So we wanted to borrow ideas from other shade tree committees, see what was successful for them and what we could implement here at Upper Moreland. Because typically these committees are all volunteers, we fed them. So, they came and they shared their ideas. We've also created a listserv with some people that weren't able to attend that networking event, just to share ideas and information. So other initiatives that the committee has determined to be priorities are the downtown tree inventory, or what's left of the downtown trees. We took a walk down there last month and just checked out what was what, and we're holding off on that because of all of the improvements down there. We don't want to plant a tree just for it to get taken down. And also the possibility of a park tree inventory. So that was discussed. We are researching that, and hopefully we'll have that at least started in 2024. So looking forward to growing and branching out with communities.
Good stuff.
Any questions?
No, I was Googling on my phone, looking up Arbor Day, and I see we missed it.
We were out there. We were out at
I missed
Mason's
it.
Mill. Yeah. It was a really good event. I want to say 200.
Okay, that was part of Earth Day? I see.
Yeah.
I did see that. Yeah. Well, I suggest next year, we should fly an Arbor Day flag, since that's something that we do. That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
All right.
What were some other initiatives that you stole from other?
So there's a tree tagging. I believe it's Doylestown that does that. So as you're walking, in downtown Doylestown, you can see which trees, identify them.
Yeah.
And also education-wise, we want to really emphasize native tree plantings. So we did post on our website some information for people to be able to access which trees they could choose if they were planting in their own yards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you're small. Those are great ideas. I know you're small. I know it's new. I know it's fresh. I know you're small and mighty, but you've got a good backing from the township and the whole department. Something that we were toying around with was some reforestation of certain areas, and that's something that I see could definitely be tied into the Shade Tree Commission. I think we've started to identify some of those zones, and maybe when we get into the downtown park inventory and the downtown tree inventory, because we know what parks are downtown, and the park tree inventory, we can try to couple that with some reforestation efforts. And then talking about the surveys and the inventory, what's the plan to implement that?
So we have taken a look at Philadelphia has just started a similar program, and one of our committee members somehow is involved with that. So she's actually going to be reporting back her findings from that for us to discuss at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, just to remind the board, so that's the that's the Shade Tree Committee, who then reports to the Shade Tree Commission, which is the Parks and Rec Advisory Council, who then makes recommendations to you. They have no authority to spend any money or hire any contractors, so everything that would be done would be through a recommendation for board's decision.
Yeah, but with that being said, that's great clarification. Ideas, right? Like that group, you're farming ideas, and so we're really appreciative of the networking that you've already established. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
So, nice work, and the word is out. I did visit the open house that Murray Cladd had just last week, and someone from Upper Dublin was there collaborating with Upper Morelands Tree Commission, so I was really happy to hear that. One of the things I think we should probably get a recommendation from is there some identifiable software that we're using to do trees that other municipalities use? That.
Like an app to be able to tell what type of tree.
That's even better, but I mean, just to keep categorized. I know there is one out there, but that's not directed to us, but I'm just thinking whatever we use software-wise for everything else we do in the township, it should be something that, collaborates and talks to other tree commissions.
We need a drone. That's a lot.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Parks and Recreation, it's not just about trees. All right, another park and recreation item, Lori Surrey Lane, open space.
Yeah, I thought it might be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about Lori Lane and what may become of that property. I don't know the timeline. I think maybe the manager can speak to that a little more than I. From my standpoint at Parks and Recreation, right now it'll just be considered open space. I didn't know if the board had any future plans for that property or any thoughts came across. Parks and Rec Advisory Council has not visited the site. Once we acquire those properties, we'll do a tour of it, and they start to brainstorm what could or could not happen. It's kind of contiguous, though it's broken, it's not evenly bound, but it could be useful land for a park, or perhaps it could just be open space and treed, so.
So there's two things that we do know about that. One is it's a very wet area, and two, it needs to remain open space to accommodate water runoff. So the first things that come into my mind are sort of tied to what I brought up to the Shade Tree Commission or committee, would be to reforest that area, because it would be a good catchment area for stormwater runoff. And again, this is me spitballing ideas. It's not been discussed with anybody else. But I see it as something like that. My personal opinion is I don't see it as a park just because of how wet it is. And also the location's a little weird to be a park on a busy road like that. But great to bring this up.
Yeah, and I think the purpose for bringing it up was just to get you thinking about that property, and, you're gonna see some recommendations from the Parks and Rec Council probably later this fall. So I didn't want it to go unmentioned until that point, just.
Yeah, I look forward to the recommendations. I was thinking along Anthony's lines that it would maybe be better as open space, trees, a natural area, maybe a trail or something though, or
a wetland
I don't,
vegetation area.
yeah. But looking forward to any recommendations. And then also if we keep it open, I'm sure you're already thinking about partnering with Pennypack.
Yeah.
See if they can help us do some good things there.
Oh, yeah.
Now, is there a creek through there?
So this is near Surrey Lane at Warminster Road. Lori Lane is the next road up. There is a creek that runs through Fulmer Heights and comes out around Lori, and then actually cuts behind a property on Surrey, goes under Surrey, and then in front of Village Green Apartments. And that's where the flooding comes from. So we own property on both sides of Surrey right now. We own some property on Warminster Road. This is going to extend our property further, I guess that's northeast. So I don't know how many acres it is total. It's maybe 2 acres is a guess. So we are adding to our open space inventory at this point. But perhaps there'll be some funding that we need if we're going to reforest it, if we're going to make it an interpretive wetland area, and things like that.
Well, what's interesting about the property is it's actually not wet. So it's just a floodplain. So you can plant normal trees there, people are planting grass, they're doing normal things there. It just happens to be in a floodplain. So when that Pennypack overruns its banks, the water goes over there. So we can do, of course we can do open space and reforestation. We can also do park uses. But anything that can be flooded and isn't going to hurt people or property or the site itself. So I would suspect it's probably going to tend to be a little more passive. Maybe you might have a playground, maybe. But the good news is it is good dry ground. You can use it for things, but you just have to understand that it does flood, and you want to plan accordingly.
So it is close to Dawson Manor Park.
It's down Arion Drive from Dawson
Okay.
Manor.
But it would also maybe serve the Village Green Apartments, which is a really big community.
They do have their own small, very
Oh, they
small,
do?
non-conforming, but yeah, they do have the playground. But it could be, maybe not a playground, but maybe some other sort of park area. There are some restrictions that come with, I guess, is this FEMA money as well as PEMA money, or PEMA and FEMA? So there's a lot of restrictions that come with it. No hard surfaces, those kinds of things. But you certainly can build play structures or park amenities in those areas. Bocce, you know, maybe that's a bocce area, certainly not a pickleball court area.
Good.
How about increasing the wetlands? To make-
I don't know that there's wetlands there I mean, the creek, is the wet area, but I don't think.
I don't
there's
think
any
it's designated as wetlands. It is designated as floodplain.
But could you make it wetlands, is my point?
I guess that'd be a Jim Hirsch question. I'm not entirely sure you could, but, we'd have to ask him what he thinks.
It would also be a penny-pack question. But, so, back to the spitball, it is a targeted area that we have been very successful with getting money for. And so it's like, the middle school and, the Homestead Park are like points of origin for the water sources. And there's been many, grant opportunities because that was a focused area from a couple different sources. That being said, I'd also like to point out at this time that, through a lot of negotiation, there was a substantial amount of stream bank stabilization involved in the bridge construction. So I just want to mention it now that we need, like, we don't really have much skin in the game as far as inspecting the bridge or anything like that, but maybe mention it to the penny packer to ask our engineers who's identifying with the stream bank stabilization and the work that's actually getting done in the creek. I mean, they're in there now. That's it, thanks.
Speaking of that, did any of you get a chance to see the Carson Simpson project? So, yeah, they finished that stabilization. If you go right past the bridge past the YMCA, look over towards Carson Simpson, you'll see they were able to stabilize I don't know how many feet it is, but probably 100 feet, I guess, or so of stream bank.
It looks pretty big.
Make sure you look at it now and then look at it a year from now.
Yeah.
All right, that's the end of our agenda. Are there any visitor comments? Any commissioner comments?
I have one. I just want to make an announcement on behalf of the Historical Association. On Monday, July 3rd at 9 a.m., there is a guided tour at the historic Montgomery Cemetery in Norristown to discuss the life and times of General Hancock. Tickets are $10, and you can RSVP to the Historical Society of Montgomery County if you're interested.
I belong to that organization. All right, with that, we're done.
Thank you.